Hey there. Today, I want to introduce you to someone who's on a mission to help people get truly unstuck, not by piling on more advice, but by bringing them crystal clear clarity. He's just launched something called Clarity Bridge Coaching, and the name says it all. It's about helping you cross from confusion to certainty. You know, those times when you're not short on options, but you just can't see the right one. That's where his simple but powerful framework, the 3Q clarity cycle, comes in. This is about cutting through the noise, reconnecting with your purpose, and finding the exact next step that's right for you. If you've been feeling stuck lately, you don't have to stay there because, as they like to say, the bridge is closer than you think. And with that, I want to introduce you to a longtime friend way back when I got in the business years and years ago, Paul Chaney. Welcome.
Hey there, Tim. It's great to see you again. And don't go too far back now. We don't want to appear too ancient, but we have known one another for, gosh, it's probably been 20 years.
Gotta
Easy.
be, gotta
I
be.
mean, we were OGs, man, and we were pioneers in the whole sort of digital marketing world, I think. Not to necessarily give us more credit than we deserve, but we have been around a long time and we've crested a few of these waves and things, so all good.
Absolutely. I was thinking about that today. I'm like, man, talk about being in the right place at the right time. That's I think called luck, and that's when I got into it in the late '90s, and I think you were about the same time.
Yeah.
How we ended up meeting was there, in my belief, back then and still to this day. I think the biggest innovators, or perhaps not, maybe not innovators is the right word, but people or industry to lop on to new technologies is the real estate community.
Oh,
Um,
definitely.
and that's how we
Definitely.
came together.
Yeah. Yeah.
We both served that community in the digital space. And it's like I said, I happened to be at the right place at the right time, and my business blew up. Um, not because I'm some genius, but because I was lucky
Right
to.
time, right place,
Right, right.
Yeah.
And so we ended up meeting personally when you interviewed me. You were working on a book called Realty Blogging,
Oh,
and
yes. Yes.
yes, and I
2006 that came out.
is that when that came out?
It came
Well,
out in
I was
2006.
trying to remember. I was looking for the in my bookshelf, and I ran out of time. I couldn't find it. But and then I
I'm
think you
expecting I keep expecting to find it in a flea market or thrift store somewhere, maybe, It's like, okay, I've reached the apex of my career. There's that book for 15 cents in a
right.
thrift store.
Right. And you get a popsicle as a bonus or
Yeah,
something.
well, anyway. Yeah, well, sooner or later that's bound to happen, but anyhow.
That's when you know you made it. Now you also did you wrote, I believe this is correct. I'm trusting Amazon in this. The Digital Handshake, you also did that, right?
Yeah, I did the Digital Handshake that came out in 2009. And then I also co-authored with a guy named Dr. Paul Maisden. He's over in the UK, very smart guy. He and I wrote the Social Commerce Handbook, which came out in 2013, I think. So I haven't been writing anything since, although I've got a couple of books in the works right now. One that's focused on what I'm referring to as AI technostress, because along with all this old AI revolution, there's a lot of stress. So I'm focused on that. And then I'm also working on something related to Clarity Bridge coaching, to kind of just, build out the whole framework and stuff like that, and just be a companion guide, if you would, to what I'm wanting to do with this new venture.
Well, let's get into that in a second. I want to still kind of fill in,
Yeah,
who
sure,
who,
sure.
who Paul is. Where are you from in the country? Or have you been there your whole life? How did you
Well,
end
I've
up being an
I've lived
author?
in the South. Yeah, I've lived in the South all my life, as if you can't tell. I was born and raised in Mississippi, and then I've lived in Louisiana, Florida, and now back in Mississippi near my grandkids. I have two granddaughters, and I've not been close to them in a long time, and now I am, and I'm just very grateful for that opportunity. I live near the town of Tupelo, Mississippi, where if anybody's an Elvis fan, they'd know Tupelo. If you're not,
Mama
it's where
baby.
Elvis was born, and yeah, and then he ended up in Memphis, of course, but that's where I hail from, and I now my if I had the opportunity, which one day maybe I will, you'll find me in the little country of Belize. That's my second home, but I'm not
Oh,
quite there yet. So
I
yeah,
have family members they just got back from a vacation from there. That's funny.
wonderful little country, and we don't need to
So
get off on that tangent because we'll never get back to the purpose of this talk.
right, right. So how do you in the land of Elvis, how do you end up being an author and getting into this digital
Yeah,
thing
it's
that we're
so
in?
weird. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I was I got into marketing in you could say 2000, I mean, excuse me, 1996. But I really got into it in 1999 and went more full time. I was working with this organization and kind of their webmaster. You remember that term, which I don't think is in extant anymore, but
Right.
helped kind of build that. And then I stepped out on my own to do something related to this new technology that was beginning to burgeon in business called blogging. And I jumped all over that, and I know you did too. And that's kind of how we ended up in the real estate world, at least me, as part of a real estate startup that was called Blogging Systems. It We made a good bit of impact back in those days. A guy named Richard Knocht was the guy who was the founder of it, and I joined him as he always called me his partner, business partner, although I think that was a bit grandiose. He gave me more credit than I deserved. I was his first employee, and we worked hard to develop that company. We made some inroads, and out of that actually came that book, Realty Blogging. He was the co-author on that, and we were involved in that for a while. But I began to see that things weren't going our way, and so I ended up in. I had remarried and moved to South Louisiana, to the town of Lafayette, and had gotten involved with an agency there, a marketing agency. Worked with them a few years, went back out on my own, wrote the book, The Digital Handshake, ran my own little company, I guess you could call it, for a while. Then went back to that agency uh, for a while, and then ended up with a company that I was their digital marketing manager. And that was working pretty good. And that's kind of, I mentioned Belize. That's kind of how I got in touch with Belize because they had operations down there and fell in love with the country. But when COVID came along in 2020, they had a real hit on their financial bottom line. And so they had to let some folks go, including me. And I've been out on my own since then, since June of 2020. And I love it. It's not always sunshine and roses being out on your own doing this kind of stuff. But the book writing part has always just been in here, maybe in here too, but it's always been something I felt like I wanted to do. And I was fortunate to have that opportunity now, really four times because Dr. Marsden and I, we published through McGraw Hill, and they wanted to do a version of the book called Facebook Commerce. And so we split that off as a kind of it was a mini book, if you would, because Facebook commerce, excuse me, was a real thing at the time. It's all folded into social media marketing these days. You don't really differentiate it. That term commerce, social commerce, is not one that's you really see a lot. But all along the way, I've had opportunities to help people do things like get book deals. And recently, I helped a guy, introduced him to my author at Wiley Publishing. He's got a book contract now, and just other things that I've helped people do to get them started. And I use this phrase now to sort of categorize myself. I say, I'm not the fire, I'm the match. And I think that's why Clarity Bridge coaching evolved because I've also been able to help people get clarity on direction that they needed in their life, in their careers. And, it's nothing to me. I mean, I'm not, you know, really all that in a bag of chips, but that's something I love to doing. I think if you think about Malcolm Gladwell's book, Tipping Point, I'm a connector. If you've read that book, that's kind of what I do. I love connecting people. And if it's connecting them with purpose or it's connecting them with an opportunity in business, whatever it might be, I love doing that. And,
Well,
you know,
let me ask you
so
this. Uh, you said you're the match, right? And
yeah,
but you're talking connection, which is real world stuff, but
yeah,
you've also talked books and authoring, and it's inside. So your business, your is the connecting and whatnot, and
right,
giving
right.
clarity to people. The
Well, let me,
marketing is the book, is it not? I'm
well,
trying to get to how important is
it,
writing.
it really, it really is all stemming from the same sort of, not philosophy, but sort of same sort of motivation, and that is to help people. Every one of those books I've ever written, um, I mean, did we make some money off of them? A little bit, not much. You don't get rich off of business books. Um, you make some money off speaking engagements, which did happen. I'm grateful for those, believe me. But those were all driven from the same motivation. I want to help people. Realty blogging was to introduce this new technology of marketing technology of blogging to the real estate industry. And let me tell you, I got feedback from lots of people who said that book and your focus on that helped us to move in this direction. I even have one dear friend, I won't call her name, but she said basically, and I'm not overstating this, I'll be honest, because she will tell you the same thing, that my help with her in this whole blogging thing, including the book, she attributes her success in business to that. So it's like, this is
Wow.
crazy. Same thing with the Digital Handshake, which was all about basically small business and social media. I've had people tell me that I had one person tell me she started a company because of that book. Well, that's the match. And the book was the spark, but she's the fire, and she's done great stuff in her career with that. So it all stems from that same motivation of just wanting to, help folks and better their lives, and then they kind of pay it forward, hopefully. But the writing has just always been in there. And I was in college. I almost went into journalism as a major. I ended up in music, of all things. But the writing has always been there. And when I entered into the marketing world, that's when the opportunities to write really blossomed. And I first started writing for a magazine. It was a print magazine, Tim, called
What is that?
Practical E-commerce. It came out in
Oh, I remember that.
2005.
I remember
Yeah.
that.
And it evolved into a digital magazine because, who was focused on print, really. And so I wrote for them for 10 years, doing a column on social media marketing. And that was really what just got me all fired up about the whole idea of writing. And then when Richard and I started the company, Blogging Systems, we were approached by McGraw-Hill to write a book, and it was like, sure, absolutely, let's do that. And so that was the first opportunity to write a book. Now, I will tell you, looking back on the Digital Handshake, looking back on Realty Blogging, I kind of hide my eyes sometimes going, oh man, if I could rewrite that, the grammar would be a whole lot better, because even these big publishing companies, they're not going to do a whole lot for you in terms of the editing and proofreading and stuff. So sometimes you just have to live with your mistakes. But when I got the bug, man, it just has always been there. And I can't believe it's been 12 years now, maybe more, since I've published a book. I've published a lot of other stuff, but I'm ready to get another book out there. So yeah.
So you said on your Facebook, I built Clarity Bridge Coaching for one simple reason. Most of us don't need more advice, we need more clarity.
I believe that. Yeah.
Tell me what that means.
Well, I believe it because everybody, when you think about it, people are willing to give you advice, but how much of it do you need or how much of it do you take? Because most of us, well, let me put it this way. There's a guy who said, you can't read the label from the inside of the jar. And I think that's where most of us are. I can give you advice on something. You go, well, maybe that's good. Maybe it's not. Or maybe it's a fit. Maybe it's not. But if I can help you through asking some simple questions, help you drive you, in a sense, to a place where you're going, oh, yeah, that's what I need to do, then I've done my job and I haven't given you one piece of advice because that's not really my role anyway. My role is to help people process their own thinking and feelings to a place where they're able to say, okay, I knew this is what I needed to do all the time. You just helped me confirm it. And that's what I do. And I've had that opportunity again a few times with, well, several actually over the years with people who've made some, not every time was it a dramatic, life-changing thing. Sometimes it was a simple mind shift. Sometimes it was a bit more dramatic. One couple that I had known for a few years, they were miserable in their workplace. They both worked for the same company. She was in marketing. He was in the back end, the programming and all of that. And we got to talking. We went through this process. And at the end of it, they said, we're quitting our jobs and we're starting a company. And they did. They started their own tech company and they had great success for a while. Some things happened in life that changed that, but it can lead to dramatic shifts. And it's really a very simple thing. I call it the 3Q question clarity cycle. And it's just one of these things that I don't know. Over time, it just sort of came together in my head, I guess. And I'm not a counselor. I'm not a therapist. I don't do that. I just help people walk through a process of clarifying their own thinking and hopefully get to the other side of it. And what I'm doing with the actual business, if you want to call it that, is establishing it as an official kind of thing and then saying to them, all right, I can help you ongoing if you want, and we can do some follow-up stuff for a period of time. And, I can work with you to work through the process that you've now decided you want to enter into. But that's essentially what it is. And I'll tell you what the three questions are. They are, what do you want for you? How do you feel about what you want? What are you doing to get what you want? And they touch three domains. The mind, what do you want for you? The heart, the emotions, what do you feel? And then the will, what are you doing? But here's the key. I don't ask those series of questions one time. I ask them three times. And every time they have to give me a different answer, and I don't know is not an answer. And at the end of it, at the end of those three times of doing this, they're either going, I have no idea, or they're settled on something that they know they need to do. And then the last question is, okay, when are you going to do what you know you need to do? And that's where I can then follow up and help them work through that process of making those determinations, setting those goals. Or if it's a person who really hasn't come to any kind of hard and fast conclusion, then we can go through a process of, okay, let's talk about some things. And I have some other questions. I also use things like the DISC personality test or the Clifton skills test, just to help them kind of figure out where do their interests lie? Where do their skills lie? Where do their capacities lie? Once they've kind of figured that out, then they're well on their way to making, those decisions that could potentially have life-changing impact.
Well, as you said, it has in many cases.
Well,
That's what
I'll give you a point, case in point. This young lady I had met online, not in a romantic way, just in a colleague kind of way. She was really confused about kind of what she was doing as a career and what she really wanted to do, which was write fiction. And she had done some of that, but nothing, in a big way. But she had this whole idea about the characters, the sort of the series that she would want to do, as fiction writers are off to do the whole series of things. And, but she was just conflicted about, does she leave her job to do this? How does this work? We worked through that process, and the end of it, she knew what she needed to do, and we talked about how to do it. And now she's embarked on that. She's still working, because I don't ever advise anybody just quit your job and go off in this other tangent,
Right.
blend it in, make it work. And she's figured out a way to do that. And we talked about how to do that. And, that was not a huge dramatic change, uh, you know, but it kind of was for her, because now she's doing that which is really in her heart to do, and, enjoying that process and feeling freedom to do it, not guilt or suppressing it, because it was in there all the time. And I just helped her turn it loose. And I didn't give her one piece of advice. I didn't analyze her. I just asked questions.
You're the modern day Socrates.
Well, maybe so. The Socratic method. Maybe I should change it to Socratic coaching or something. But no,
Right.
I don't know, man. It just sort of evolved over time. It was nothing, I didn't sit down necessarily and come up with some scientific thing or do a bunch of research. It was just something that seemed to work. And I said, well, okay, it seems
Same
to
to work
work.
for others, or did you go through a process personally?
Well, I tell you, I need sometimes for somebody to ask me those questions. You want to ask me those questions, Tim, to help me work through some of it. Because
Amen.
again, the saying, the guy said, I think it was Steve Woodruff was who said it. I have to give him credit. He said, you can't read the label from the inside of the jar. Well, we're all inside the jar. What's that old Irish saying or adage? Oh, the gift that you could give us to see the world as others see us.
Oh,
We see
yeah.
ourselves from the inside, others from the outside, and it's sort of that kind of thing. We're inside our own heads. We need somebody to sort of pull things out and say, okay, look at it this way, whatever. And that's all this process does. And it is a labor of love. I haven't at this point, accrued any clients as of yet, because I just kicked it off. I mean, literally 2 weeks ago, and I'm still kind of working through some of the intricacies of it and all of that thing, and I haven't really pushed it out to the market too much yet. Of course, look, there's a lot of people who are doing coaching, life coaching, business coaching, all that kind of stuff, and so I've got to sort of differentiate what I do in the marketplace to separate it from some of these other genres, because I don't think it's exactly a life coach thing. I don't think it's exactly a career coach thing. I think it has implications. It could be a simple decision that you feel like you need to make about anything. I
See,
mean,
this is what I dig right now. Is it's so new that we're getting to hear you still work out the marketing. So the marketing Paul's coming out,
yeah, I
right?
mean, that's the other thing. That's the other thing, Tim, is I love doing marketing for other people. I can lay you out a content plan or, all this stuff. When it comes to me, I suck at it. I mean, I need to hire somebody to market me, just like I need those three questions asked to me. But I've got a plan in place. I just need to begin to execute it more. And it's not anything that I'm necessarily dependent on financially. I do look at it as a different income stream. But then I really actually look at everything I do, even in the writing and editing work that is my day job, working with clients, mainly agencies, actually, to Sidman work. What I do with this whole idea of the AI technostress thing I made mention of, which is, excuse me, which is a newsletter I developed over time, where I began focusing on the ethics of AI and its relationship to marketing. But it's developed into something a bit different now. I'm focusing on workplace wellness, things like that. And I look at all of this from the standpoint of, I'm providing clarity. If you're an agency, you've got a client and they need an article written, maybe it's a complex technology thing, but it needs to be put in words that more people can understand. That's clarity. This whole idea of operating ethically with the use of AI, that's clarity. This is a different kind of clarity. It's more on the personal level. And I think for me, it's a little bit more of a heartfelt thing because, we could all use a little leg up every now and again, right?
Well, you're truly coming from a place of wanting to help people. I mean, that's evident in just in this
Yeah.
short conversation. And
Well,
I've known that and had that hunch for years just in our little bit of knowing each other. It's obvious. So
yeah. Well,
it,
as I get older, I put more focus on, I've got more years behind me than I have ahead of me. Maybe you do too, unless we live to be 120 or something. Oh, Lord. Uh, but I think about, I got children and grandchildren and, those generations coming up. What am I giving to them? What value am I adding to them or younger people? And I think of Gen X and Gen Y and these younger people who, they're still trying to figure out things, right? And if this old guy can give them a little bit of advice and, take up an hour or two of their time to do it, not advice, I reject that word, um, help them gain clarity. Then what's wrong with that?
what do you think, since you mentioned the kids, what do you think this younger generation coming up needs in order to get through, we talk about AI, you've talked about AI, to get through that sort of stuff that we didn't have to deal with?
No, that's a great question. And I think I think it comes from everything I think about, these days comes from a place of values and ethics, and I think it's got to be foundational. Everybody's got to have a foundation of values and ethics. Yours may differ from mine, whether it's religious beliefs or something else, whatever it may be, we all need that. And I think our use of AI, because look, my 10-year-old granddaughter was over here yesterday. I'm giving her piano lessons. Okay. And we were just hanging out. And she said to me, I used AI in class today. And she's in the fifth grade. And I'm going, oh my God. And we talked about it. And I said, what did you do? And I said, she worked out a PowerPoint deck or slide deck or something. And I said, what did you use to do it? She said, I used Canva. And I'm just sitting here blown away that my 10-year-old granddaughter is now using AI in a way. And she said it was, I wasn't required to do it. I just wanted to do it to sort of, sort of help my cause with a teacher, so to speak, maybe earn a little bonus points or something. And I thought it's surrounding them. And I think AI will eventually become to the place where we won't even think of it as AI. It's just every day, right? And but for them as well as for us, it does come down to a place of, are we going to use this in a value add sort of way? Are we going to use this technology in a way that benefits people and not doesn't harm society? Are we going to use it ethically, morally? And I think when it comes to business, to kind of bring it back around to that, um, you know, that's the only choice we really have. I mean, you can use it in a very illicit sort of way, but why would you want to do that, really? And look, I mean, I was just reading a story today about Meta and ethics, and that there's some kind of thing about it's allowing children to have these very sensitive talks with the Meta, AI, and it's like that's not very ethical. So we have to be on guard against that. And I think when you're talking about younger generations, particularly children and teens, parents have a huge responsibility, as
Well,
do teachers, to
this is the problem is our we're grandparents, right? And then you
yeah,
have our kids are the parents, or about to be at some point. They're of age anyway. Are they are they equipped
right,
to even tell the kids? Because they, I mean, the kids today that are becoming parents uh, have never really messed with a DVD, or at least a DVD, in a long time, which
Right.
sounds ridiculous, but they grew up
Yeah.
on a phone. A lot of
Well, that's right.
people, a lot
Yeah.
of people aren't even, usually working on laptops and stuff. They've got their phone that they're working
Right.
on, and it
Right.
creates a different experience. And it's what I call where we become a culture of disposability, right? What's the last photo album that we've put together? It's
Right.
been
Exactly.
ages. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's sort of, I mean, it's like, yeah, whatever. So what?
Well,
But it's an issue. It's an
yeah, I
issue, I
mean,
think.
you think about, well, I'm thinking about my son and his wife. They're 40 now, and they have these two daughters. And, who's to say that the daughters won't, my granddaughters, their daughters, won't know more about AI than they do. So, how much governance and supervision can they provide along those lines? So I think there is a real need, and I don't focus on the educational or parental aspects of things so much, but maybe I should more. But they have a responsibility to equip themselves and acquaint themselves with both the benefits and the liabilities or the dangers
Yeah.
of using AI and what it can do to affect a young person's mind. And like you say, we live, even me, you, we live on our phones all the time. Um, and I think that there too, it's still the same kind of thing. There's a moral and ethical responsibility to make sure we use this technology in a way that benefits society, benefits our children. And if I can be that input to my granddaughters where this stuff is concerned, and hopefully it wouldn't jump over my son and daughter-in-law. But yeah, I think there's that responsibility is broadband. It is necessary, and we have to start thinking. It's look from a business standpoint, it's not necessarily very sexy to think about governance and ethics and all of that. It's sexy to think about the latest version of GPT or Chat GPT, or what can, Claude do now, or how about this whole focus on AI and search, which is another area that I'm focused on now. And I put together a guidebook about that. But, those are the things we're all jazzed about or that we're paying attention to, not whether we're using AI in the most responsible way or not, but it is a necessary thing. I mean, when Moses came down off the mountain with the Ten Commandments, I don't know that the people of Israel were all that necessarily thrilled about it, but it was something they had to deal with, right? So we have to have our own series of commandments, if you would,
Yeah.
to make sure that we're doing this stuff right. Because I tell you, the more I research this, the more I think about it, the more I read about it, the more I realize there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong with using AI. We've got to be, we've got to have guardrails to make sure we're using it right. And, the temptation is to go beyond the guardrails or, jump the fence, as it were. And we don't need to be doing that because who's to say what could happen? I mean, of course, there are people who are portending that are predicting that the world will come to an end because of AI. And, who am I to say it won't? But for right now, my focus is on let's use it the right way. Let's be responsible in our use. And to your point, let's make sure parents and teachers have enough knowledge about it that they can make sure kids are using it in the right way too, because kids don't know. I
Well,
mean,
I think with technology, our generation, now you and I jumped into it right away, but we also know people who were regular non-geeky,
yeah,
non-digital people, and they lived their lives, had their kids, and their kids are the ones that came up immersed in technical stuff
sure. Yeah,
more than the parents. So the parents don't know jack, right? And
right.
I could think of a bunch of friends that I know that have no interest in anything I when I talk about this stuff, right? So
I know.
they had no guardrail, to use your word. to pass on to their kids.
Right,
But I
right.
think we're at a inflection point where we as a society are going to have to learn how to self-regulate
Yeah,
and
absolutely. Yeah.
and take our education into our own hands. The government's not going to do it. The educational system ain't going to do it. They're overwhelmed too much. We ourselves have got to do this, and it's like you said, it's not sexy. It's but
No,
it's
but it's
necessary
yeah.
because you've got kids talking to AI now intimately.
Oh, absolutely they are.
What in
And
the
parents
actual
are
hell?
totally oblivious
Right.
to what's
And
going on.
so I think it's important that people that are in the know that have some sort of a caring about where the world's going needs to say this stuff. So I'm sorry to get too preachy or whatever, but I think I wanted to lop onto that what you're saying because
Yeah,
I think
well,
it's extremely important.
I know a couple of people right now who are very heavily focused on the whole educational system where AI is concerned. And then one of those people is also focused on the parental side of it in terms of parental responsibility. But you are absolutely right. There's a lot of people who live everyday normal lives who aren't, nerdy geeks like us, who's all up in the technology, thinking about that all the time, who don't think about it, who don't know much about it. I even talked to someone the other day and I mentioned Chat GPT and she looked at me like, what's Chat GPT? And I was a little bit dumbfounded.
Yep.
It's almost like I just expect everybody knows about
We're
this and
we're
they
in our
don't.
did we're in our geeky digital bubble,
Oh, we
and
are,
we
aren't
we
we?
think
Absolutely.
everybody is excited about GPT-5. They don't even know GPT, as you just said with your
No, they
friend.
do not. And I would say even a lot of you talk about real estate, And now I know a bunch of realtors, or you probably do too, who they're really all up in this stuff and have been in technology waves all along. And but there's probably a lot of realtors who really aren't. But I guess the normal maybe we're not normal, Tim, but the normal everyday person, this does not occupy a lot of their thinking day in, day out. It will more and more as AI sort of creeps into the cultural zeitgeist, if you would, and just becomes normative. But I mean, look, if you watch Netflix, you're dealing with AI because Netflix is making recommendations based on machine learning and artificial intelligence to predict what you would want to watch. Amazon does the same thing now. It's all
Yep.
machine learning, it's all AI. And so we're confronted with, and we don't even know that's what it is.
It's
And that's going to
seamless.
happen more and more and more and more. But to your point about the kids, now you got me all worried about the kids here. They're on these things and they're paying attention and they're talking to this stuff. And when my granddaughter said, she used Canva. Now she did it in a classroom, so there was safeguards there. I'm sure the teacher was very well aware of what was going on, or maybe even guiding that process. But yeah, we've got to be on guard, and we've got to have guard rails. And as much as human nature doesn't like to be told what to do, we don't, we can't depend on certainly, and I'm not getting political. I don't want to do that, but we can't depend on the current administration to really do a lot of enforcement. I don't know that we can really trust the big companies who are all up in this to do it. We've got to do it, as you said. We, as going back to marketing, in the marketing industry, we've got to self-regulate. We've got to govern ourselves because nobody else is really going. Now, if you go to, I mean, if we're dealing with Europe, it's a whole other ball game. But we haven't in the U.S. implemented any of these safeguards to any great degree. California, New York, maybe some other states are picking it up, but that even presents another problem now because then it becomes piecemeal. And here's what this state requires. California is more regulated than the other state. Here's what New York requires. Here's Ohio. Here's New Mexico. It's all this jumbled puzzle that now we have to figure out. There's no universal, right? You go
Well,
to
I
the
think part of the
EU.
problem, I think part of the problem is if you recall when Microsoft was pulled into Congress in the late 90s. right? And Bill Gates. And they did a dog and pony show. Congress didn't have a clue what Bill was talking about or any of that stuff. And if they
Right.
couldn't figure that out, they sure as hell aren't going to figure out AI. And
No.
uh,
Mm-mm.
and so what we cannot expect, and I live by this anyway. You can't expect government to express itself ethically. It will do a poor job. And the problem is that as a culture, we're not allowed to use that word. We've used it several times, but it's not cool to talk about ethics and right and wrong and have these discussions because you're going to sound too religious and now you're preaching at me and it's like, man, we're at that time. And I'm not, you know,
Well, I
I'm not
mean,
saying get all like, Bible thumping or whatever. What I'm saying, man, we got to have a real conversation because
sure we do.
we
Absolutely
are
we do.
living in a disposable society.
Well, to your point, I again, as just came to mind on LinkedIn today, one of my friends pointed me to a post by someone who talked about what just happened in Portland. Um, some vandals. There was this meeting about AI ethics going on, and these, I don't know who they are. I just read the article, but these anti-AI folks showed up, vandalized all the cars, ripped tires, just all kinds of damage to these people who were in this meeting talking about the ethical use of AI. I mean, it's what a oxymoronic kind of thing, you know. Uh, uh, I mean, it doesn't make any sense, but I guess when it comes down to it, while we don't like to be ruled and regulated too much, I mean, I like freedom as much as anybody. There has to be some guardrails. There has to be some coming together, minds coming together, ideally from government, from the tech industry, including the big three, if you would, and from other industries like marketing, which I think has a unique role in this mix, and sit down together and say, okay, how are we going to make sure we don't screw this up, And it may even come down to just individual organizations and companies saying, these are our policies. You don't
Mm,
violate those policies. We have a council or a committee in place that provides governance and
that's
oversight
brilliant.
to our use of all this. And probably from a practical standpoint, and I advocate this all the time, have an AI council, ethics council that oversees, have it be somewhat broad based from stakeholders across the enterprise, have a policy that you put in place that's just part of how you operate, your standard operating procedures, and make sure that somebody's got their finger on the pulse of this to guide it and to monitor it. And I think that is probably the most practical answer. And I think if you look at people like, I don't know, Charlene Lee, who's very well known tech leader, pioneer in the tech world. I mean, she's saying the kind of the same thing. It comes down to some common sense stuff, really. I mean, it's just a lot of it's just common sense. I mean, you're not going to let your 5-year-old play with a, a lighter or a
Right,
knife,
right.
so let's just make sure we have some common sense rules in place that help us to do this thing right. And it may just be company to company to company to organization to whatever it is that that's where the implementation happens. And that's another area that I've got my, a pie I've got my finger in too. So it's important to me and hopefully important to a lot of people.
I That's fascinating, and I believe the same thing. Paul, is there anything else you want to add? How do we get to your website? How do we get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can go to My Clarity Bridge, myclaritybridge.com, and you can get to the website. It's not a lot of information there yet. That's also work in progress, but it's clear enough that you can see what I do, what I offer. I have different packages And I have even pricing options. I mean, payment options. So, if you don't have all the money to, buy a certain package, you can pay it out over time. I want to make this amenable for anyone and everyone. And, I don't want this to be something that only company executives can use. I want it to be something a student could use if they needed to take advantage of it, or, whomever it might be. But I do offer some packages. The initial basic, and I also offer a 30-minute discovery, free, no strings attached. I'm not going to pressure you to take the next step. You make that decision yourself. But the initial session is called, what do I call it? It's an hour and a half where we work through this clarity process. And at the end of it, you may say, thanks, that's all I need. And, thank you for your time. But you may say, well, can you help me ongoing for a period? And I offer a 3 session and then a 6 session package to follow up in case they need it. And again, I don't put pressure on him. I'm the world's worst salesman. I will come to you and say, you don't need this, do you? I'm that kind of person, but I'm just here, like I said, to try to help folks, um, you know, get clear in their thinking.
It's amazing. Well,
Simple.
Paul, I really appreciate the time that you've given us, and I
Thank you.
like where the
Thank you.
conversation went.
Yeah, man.
Um, can you throw out some of your socials where they could find you, and give your website
Yeah.
one more time?
Well, myclaritybridge.com is the Clarity Bridge coaching website. Mainly these days, from a business perspective, you find me on LinkedIn, and what is the URL now? LinkedIn.com/in/Paul Chaney. I think that's how it goes. I'm not really active that much on what's it called, X now, and I'm not active on Threads much. Couldn't really find my niche on Threads. You can find me on Facebook. That's facebook.com/Paul Chaney. Um, so you can find me there. That's more friends and family for the most part. If you want to get to know me in a different way, then maybe I'll let you in there.
That's amazing. And Chaney is Chaney.
Yeah, not yeah. People used to say, "Oh, you're related to Dick Cheney." Well, people don't even know who that is anymore, and he spelled his name
Scary, right?
Chaney. And I said, "I wish I was. I wish I had some of his oil money, but no, it's Paul Paul. Although on LinkedIn, I do go by my first name. My legal name is Ernest, because to get the validation thing, or the whatever they called it, you had to use your legal name. And that messed a lot of people up. They thought, well, who is this guy? Are you different now? Who are you?
Right.
But yeah, I think that's all been settled. But basically, I'm still Paul Chaney, day in, day out.
Fantastic. I want to tap into some of the ethics stuff and AI that if you don't mind sending that to me in
Yeah,
some
man.
way. I'd love to read what you're doing because it's a fascination with me as well.
Well, I'll be happy to do that and then point you to some things I'm doing along those lines. No
I
problem.
appreciate that. Paul, fantastic.
Thank
This
you,
is a
sir.
great convo. I really appreciate you and continued success, sir.
Thank you very much, Tim. I appreciate the opportunity. I really do.
We'll talk to you real soon.